All right, let's dive right into this explainer. We're looking at one of the most chilling and, frankly, most complex criminal cases in modern American history, the D.C. Beltway sniper attacks of October 2002. For a full month, an entire metropolitan region was just completely paralyzed by what felt like an invisible threat. But what's truly fascinating to me is the intense, multi-agency investigative effort that finally ended this terrifying 3-week siege. We're going to map out exactly how law enforcement connected the dots, tracked down the impossible, and brought these perpetrators to justice.
To really grasp the incredibly high stakes of this mystery, we have to start with the sheer psychological warfare these killers were waging on the public. Call me God. Just let that sink in. This chilling demand was found written right at the top of a tarot death card left behind at one of the shooting sites. It wasn't just about the violence, it was about power, it was about control, and actively taunting the very people trying to stop them. It really set a terrifying tone for the entire investigation.
And here is what made this crisis so universally terrifying: the absolute randomness of it all. Over the course of the attacks, 10 people were randomly gunned down and 3 more were critically injured. But look at what they were doing at the time: mowing the lawn, pumping gas, shopping, or just simply reading a book. These victims were just going about their everyday lives. It completely shattered any sense of public safety because there was absolutely no pattern to the victims. It meant anyone, literally anyone, felt like they could be next.
Let's move into Part 1, 3 weeks of terror. Looking at the timeline, you can really feel the relentless, rapid pace of the violence. It all kicks off on October 2nd, when a 55-year-old man was struck down crossing a parking lot in Wheaton, Maryland. By 10 o'clock the very next morning, 4 more people in Maryland and 1 in D.C. had been murdered within just a few miles of each other. Over the next 2 weeks, the geography expanded like wildfire. A woman loading her van in Spotsylvania, a 13-year-old boy at a school in Bowie, men pumping gas in Manassas and Fredericksburg. And tragically, the toll included one of law enforcement's own, FBI intelligence analyst Linda Franklin, who was felled by a single bullet while leaving a home improvement store with her husband. The final victim, a bus driver, was killed on October 22nd.
Which brings us to Part 2, the massive investigation.
Facing these seemingly invisible killers, law enforcement had to mount a totally unprecedented response. The attacks were quickly linked, and suddenly investigators were tasked with finding a needle in a haystack, while the haystack was actively under fire. To understand the staggering scale of this effort, just consider this number: 400. Within days, the FBI alone deployed some 400 agents from all around the country to work this case. They were supporting the Montgomery County Police Department, led by Chief Charles Moose, who had specifically requested the federal help. The logistics here were massive. They set up toll-free hotlines, pulling in teams of new agents in training just to handle the massive flood of public tips. Evidence experts were brought in to digitally map the constantly evolving crime scenes, behavioral analysts worked around the clock to build a profile, and they even set up a dedicated joint operations center just to coordinate the chaos.
So let's talk about Part 3, the fatal mistake.
Because with all that manpower, how do you catch a ghost? How do you find someone who strikes from a distance and then just vanishes without a trace? Well, the crucial turning point was an incredible forensic chain reaction. And the big break came, ironically enough, from the snipers themselves. On October 17th, a caller claiming to be the sniper phoned in this sort of investigative tease. He bragged that he was responsible for a robbery and murder at a liquor store in Montgomery, Alabama, a whole month earlier. Investigators confirmed that crime had indeed happened and that ballistic and fingerprint evidence had been collected. So an FBI agent immediately grabs that evidence in Mobile, Alabama, and flies to D.C. The ATF handled the ballistics, while the FBI laboratory ran the fingerprints. On October 22nd, boom, their database produced a match. A magazine dropped at the Alabama scene bore the fingerprints of Lee Boyd Malvo from a previous arrest in Washington state. And that arrest record provided another name, John Allen Muhammad. An agent in Tacoma immediately recognized Muhammad's name from a previous tip. Just like that, they had 2 solid suspects.
Now, what's truly brilliant here is the legal maneuvering investigators used to box these suspects in. Working with ATF agents, they discovered Muhammad was in possession of a Bushmaster 223 rifle. Because Muhammad had been served with a restraining order to stay away from his ex-wife, possessing that firearm was a direct federal violation. This wasn't just some minor technicality. It enabled authorities to charge him with federal weapons violations. With Malvo clearly connected to the crimes too, the FBI and ATF jointly obtained a federal material witness warrant. They now had the legal authorization to take them off the streets.
So we have the who and the why starting to take shape, but law enforcement desperately needed the where.
On that exact same day, October 22nd, agents searched a criminal records database and found that Mohammed had registered a highly specific vehicle, a blue 1990 Chevy Caprice with New Jersey license plates reading NBA 21Z. Recognizing the incredible power of the public, they crowdsourced the hunt. They broadcast this exact description far and wide. Anyone on the road was now basically a deputy. The hunt was hyper-focused. The invisible killers finally had a physical footprint.
Leading into Part 4, a rolling sniper's nest.
Late on the night of October 23rd, at right around 11:45 p.m., the tip they were so desperately waiting for came in. That dark blue Chevy Caprice was spotted in a rest stop parking lot off Interstate 70 in Maryland. Within the hour, a massive law enforcement presence swarmed the scene, setting up a completely airtight perimeter to ensure absolutely zero chance of escape. Finally, at 3:19 a.m. on October 24th, a combined team of Maryland State Police, Montgomery County SWAT officers, and special agents from the FBI's elite hostage rescue team moved in. They arrested John Allen Muhammad and Lee Boyd Malvo, who were sound asleep inside. The entire takedown happened without a single struggle.
But guys, it's what evidence experts found inside that car that truly reveals the shocking mechanics of these crimes. The vehicle had been entirely transformed into a rolling sniper's nest. I mean, they literally cut a hole in the trunk near the license plate so shots could be fired while they remained completely hidden inside the vehicle. They had actually removed the sheet metal between the passenger compartment and the trunk, so the shooter could slip into the back without ever opening a door. Inside, agents recovered the Bushmaster .223 caliber rifle used in every single attack, along with a scope, a tripod to steady the weapon, walkie-talkies, the digital voice recorder they used to make extortion demands, and a stolen laptop loaded with maps of the shooting sites and getaway routes. The Chevy Caprice owner's manual even contained written impressions of one of their demand notes. It's just wild.
And finally, Part 5, Justice Served.
The physical threat was finally neutralized. But the work was far from over. The FBI and supporting agencies spent countless hours meticulously gathering all this evidence and preparing it for court. They had to absolutely guarantee these two would never terrorize the community again. And that exhaustive investigative work really paid off in the courtroom. Both Malvo and Muhammad faced justice across multiple court cases, finally securing their ultimate fates. Lee Boy Malvo was sentenced to life without parole. John Allen Muhammad, the true architect of the chaos, received the death penalty in Virginia and was executed on November 10, 2009.
It leaves us with this incredible, thought-provoking reality. These two men utilized immense tactical planning, modifying a vehicle to become virtually invisible, mapping out complex escape routes, and completely paralyzing the capital of the United States. Yet, what actually brought them down? Hubris. Despite all their calculated terror, it was their own arrogance, a single boastful phone call about an entirely unrelated robbery in Alabama that handed law enforcement the exact thread they needed to unravel the whole nightmare. It begs the question, in the age of modern forensics, is it ever really possible to commit the perfect crime? Or will human ego always be the fatal flaw? Take that thought with you, and I'll see you in the next explainer.